reflection that smiled first. Chapter 1. The Mirror in the Hallway. Elena had lived in the old house for only 2 weeks when she noticed the mirror. It wasn't like any of the others. Most of the mirrors in the creaky Victorian were either old and cracked or foggy with time, but the one in the hallway right across from the staircase looked new, untouched, as if someone had just installed it. But Elena was sure it had been there when she moved in. Still, something about it was too clean, too deliberate. Every time she passed it, she felt eyes on her. Not just the usual unease from catching your own reflection. It was more specific, like someone watching from the other side. One night, coming back from the kitchen with a glass of water, she caught her reflection lingering. Not delayed, not flickering, just pausing, like it wanted to stay in the mirror longer than she did. She stopped. Her reflection stood still, staring back. Everything about it looked right. Same pajamas, same tired eyes, same wild bun on her head. And then it smiled. Elena hadn't smiled. She blinked and gasped. Her reflection returned to normal, mirrored her movements exactly. She stood frozen in the dim hallway, water shaking in the glass. She told herself it was sleep, a trick of the light, stress. But every night after that, the reflection did something new, something she didn't. One night it blinked before she did. Another night it tilted its head slightly faster. Then it didn't appear at all, until she looked away and looked back. By the end of the week, Elena had covered the mirror with an old bedsheet. But in the middle of the night it would fall, and she'd wake to the sound of a whisper, "Come look at me." Chapter 2. The Smile That Wasn't Hers. Elena hadn't uncovered the mirror in days. But when she passed by the hallway, she could still feel it. Not just the weight of her imagination, but an actual pull, like gravity shifted every time she walked past. The sheet she'd draped over the mirror swayed even when the air was still. She finally decided to tape the corners down. That night she dreamt of smiling. Not her smile, not something warm or happy. It was wide, thin-lipped, stretched across a face that looked like hers, but wasn't. In the dream, she stood in the hallway, barefoot on the cold wooden floor, and stared into the uncovered mirror. Her reflection grinned from ear to ear, eyes wide, teeth just a little too straight. It didn't blink. It only smiled. When Elena woke, her jaw ached from clenching. Her cheeks were sore. She stood up and walked slowly toward the hallway. The tape was still on the sheet, but it had fallen again. Not torn, not curled, just removed, like someone had gently peeled it off. She didn't pull the sheet back, not yet. Instead, she placed a dining chair in front of it, then sat and waited. A full hour, maybe 2, and then out of the corner of her eye, a twitch. She turned. The sheet still covered the glass, but her own reflection was staring back at her through the sheet. No light source, no projection, just her reflection visible beneath the thin fabric, smiling the same way it had in the dream. The corners of its mouth curled up slowly. She stood in terror. Her own face was neutral, yet the smile in the mirror widened, and then the reflection raised a finger and placed it over its lips. Chapter 3. 3 seconds too late. Elena had never timed her own movements before, but now everything had a rhythm, a ritual. She would walk down the hall, glance at the covered mirror, count to 3, and keep moving. 1, 2, 3. She never looked back. Until she did. It was an accident. She dropped her keys one night and turned too quickly. The sheet had slipped again, just a little, enough to expose one corner of the mirror. And the reflection was already looking at her. She hadn't even reached the mirror yet. Elena's feet froze to the floor, her breath caught. The woman in the mirror wore her clothes, had her curls, but something was different. The reflection's eyes were wider, darker, and it didn't move when she did. She took one slow step back. The reflection smiled. 2 seconds. She turned and walked away, fast, but she didn't hear her own footsteps echoing. She heard them lag behind, just barely. She counted, 1, 2, 3, and then came the echo, 3 seconds too late. She rushed into the kitchen and slammed the door behind her, heart racing, chest tight. She pressed her ear against the door, listening. Silence. Then, faintly, the sound of breathing on the other side. A soft knock. 3 taps. Not on the kitchen door. On the hallway mirror. She didn't go back to the hallway that night. She slept on the kitchen floor with the lights on. But in her dreams, she could still hear the delayed footsteps and the smile that came before her own. The next morning, she found something new. On the floor near the mirror lay a second set of keys, identical, even worn in the same places as hers. She picked them up with shaking hands and checked every key. Her apartment, her mailbox, her car, all a perfect match. But she had her own keys in her pocket. These were another set, made for someone else who wasn't supposed to exist. Later that day, she tried an experiment. She stood in front of the covered mirror, holding a stopwatch. She waved, waited. 3 seconds passed. The sheet rippled just slightly. Then she felt it. An arm brushed past her, though no one was there. She turned quickly, but nothing was behind her. In the mirror, her reflection was gone. And on the hallway floor, next to the second set of keys, sat her watch. Still ticking. 3 seconds behind. Chapter 4. When her eyes blinked first, Elena had started avoiding the hallway altogether. She took longer routes through the house, refused to walk past the mirror in the dark, and jumped at every draft that brushed the back of her neck. But on the 4th morning after the footsteps, something inside her snapped. "I won't be afraid of glass," she whispered to herself, trying to sound braver than she felt. She approached the hallway mirror just before noon. The sun was out, bright, warm, casting golden stripes across the floorboards. It made everything feel safe, real. She pulled the sheet off in one motion. There she was, her reflection, standing in the same position, wearing the same hoodie, eyes locked. Nothing happened. Elena let out a small laugh of relief. But as she turned to walk away, she caught something in her peripheral vision. A blink. Too early. She turned back. Her reflection had blinked before she did. She stared at it, unblinking, daring it to move first. For one long minute, neither of them blinked. And then, without warning, Her reflection blinked again. Still too early. Elena raised her hand. So did the reflection, but it moved slower, just slightly. She tilted her head left. The reflection mirrored her. Delayed by a breath, her stomach twisted. She turned to leave, but the reflection didn't. She froze. The figure in the mirror slowly tilted its head again, further this time. Its smile widened, revealing teeth Elena didn't remember having. The pupils in its eyes dilated, then shrank, like they were adjusting to some light she couldn't see. And then it whispered, lips not quite moving. "You're the reflection now." Elena backed away until her shoulder hit the far wall. She looked around the room, trying to find anything real to hold on to. But all she saw was herself, and the other self. Blinking first. Chapter 5. The Frame That Froze. Elena had seen enough. That night she went to the basement, found a hammer, and returned to the hallway with a plan. She would take the mirror down. If it was just a mirror, just a piece of glass and wood, it would come down like anything else. But when she touched the frame, it was ice cold. Colder than the rest of the house. Colder than it had any right to be in the middle of spring. She pulled her hand away and saw condensation forming where her fingers had been. A foggy outline, like breath on a window. She steadied herself, lifted the hammer, and wedged it beneath the corner. Nothing. She tried again, pushing harder. Still, nothing. It wouldn't move. It was as if the wall itself had grown around it. Frustrated, Elena pounded on the glass with the hammer, not to shatter it, just to make it respond. But it made no sound. No vibration. The whole mirror was silent and still. Then she noticed something odd. The reflection wasn't moving. Her own hand holding the hammer was frozen in the reflection. She looked down. It was shaking in real life, just slightly from the effort. But in the mirror, it was still, perfectly still. She waved her free hand in front of the mirror. No response. Her face in the mirror was locked in the expression it had worn a second before. No blinking, no breath, no change. She stepped back, heart hammering. The frame had frozen the reflection, trapped it. But then, just as she turned away, the mirror caught up. All at once, every movement she'd made over the past 30 seconds played out in fast motion. A distorted version of her own motion, sped up and slightly twisted, like watching herself on tape. She gasped, and her reflection smiled. This time, it wasn't hers, and the hammer dropped from her hand. She stepped back, but the mirror didn't. The reflection remained still, staring forward, but the space behind it began to shift. The hallway inside the glass rippled like heat waves on asphalt. Objects started to form. Twisted furniture, shadowed doorways, versions of her own house, but wrong, too narrow, too dark, a warped imitation. She bent down slowly and picked the hammer back up. "If you're not me," she whispered, "what are you?" The reflection tilted its head, the smile remaining, and behind it something began to crawl, just out of focus. Not a person, not a shadow. Something long, like limbs stretched too far. The lights above her flickered. She struck the mirror again, and again. Still no crack. But this time, The reflection flinched, not from the strike, from something behind it. Elena paused, realized the mirror wasn't showing her anymore. It was showing itself. The world behind the glass, one that didn't want to be seen. Then the surface of the mirror began to pulse. The frame groaned. She heard something creak within the walls of her home, like the house itself was reacting. And for a single heartbeat, the reflection looked afraid. Then it disappeared, replaced by her real reflection. Pale, trembling, the hammer fell again, this time from her own hand, and she whispered, "You're not the one trapped. I am." Chapter 6. Things that moved when she didn't. By the 6th day, Elena had begun documenting everything. She set up her phone to record the hallway for hours at a time. She noted where she placed every object, keys on the table, shoes by the door, even the way her hairbrush sat on the bathroom counter. It had become a silent obsession. She needed proof, or maybe permission to believe what she already knew. The mirror wasn't just a mirror anymore. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the treetops, she poured herself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table with her phone in hand. The latest hallway footage was uneventful at first. Shadows stretching, light shifting, nothing out of place, until it happened. At exactly 3:17 p.m., Elena watched herself pass by the hallway, headed upstairs. 2 seconds later, the sheet over the mirror began to ripple, not as if touched by air, but like something beneath it was pressing outward. And then, a handprint, right in the center of the cloth. She paused the video, rewound, played again. It was there, clear as day. But that wasn't the worst part. In the reflection, barely visible through the thin sheet, Elena could make out the living room behind her and a figure standing still, not moving, just watching. She froze. Her mug clattered to the floor, splashing tea across the tile. She didn't notice. She rushed to the hallway, yanked the sheet free. Nothing there, just her, alone. But when she turned around to leave, she saw something in the corner of her eye. The couch cushion. It was indented, like someone had just been sitting there, still warm. Chapter 7. The fog inside the glass. The hallway mirror had always been clean, eerily so. But on the 7th morning, a strange fog began to cloud the surface. It started small, a circle the size of a coin, right in the center, like breath had touched it from the inside. Elena tried wiping it away, but her cloth came back dry. No moisture, no smudge, just fog that didn't belong to her. That night, the fog grew. It spread outward like frost, curling along the edges of the glass in patterns that looked almost intentional, like fingers dragging slowly across ice. Swirls, spirals, jagged lines forming some kind of language she couldn't understand. She grabbed her phone to take a picture, but when she looked at the screen, the fog wasn't there. The mirror looked perfectly clear. She lowered the phone. The fog returned. She lifted it again, gone, only visible to her eyes, not the camera. The symbols continued to grow over the next few hours. Elena couldn't sleep. She sat across from the mirror in a silent standoff, eyes locked on the shapes forming in the mist. And then for the first time, it moved. Not the reflection, the fog itself. It twisted upward, gathering into a single spot, like steam being inhaled by the mirror. It coiled until it formed a new shape. A face. Not hers. Something sharper, grinning, watching. And then it whispered from behind the glass. "Now you see it." Elena dropped the blanket she had wrapped around herself and stumbled back, heart thundering. The fog didn't fade, it stayed, lingering. And inside the glass, the eyes didn't blink. They waited. Chapter 8. The Word on the Surface. Elena awoke to silence, not the comforting hush of dawn, but an emptiness, as if the house had swallowed its own sound. She sat up, disoriented, and for a moment forgot what day it was. Then she remembered the mirror. She crept into the hallway, already sensing the change. The air felt heavier. Her steps felt muffled, like the floor had grown thick with dust overnight. The mirror was still uncovered. The fog had cleared mostly, but something new had taken its place. A single word was written across the glass. Mine. Not etched, not smeared. Written. With deliberate care. Each letter was tall and sharp, formed from a dark, oily substance that glistened faintly under the morning light. It looked too real to be a trick of condensation, too purposeful to be an accident. Elena didn't touch it. Her fingers hovered inches from the glass, trembling. She stared at the word, her breath catching as her reflection slowly stepped into view, but she hadn't moved. The reflection raised a hand and pointed to the word. Then it tilted its head just slightly and mouthed something. She couldn't hear it, but she didn't have to. She knew exactly what it was saying. "I told you." Then, slowly, the word began to smur, letter by letter, wiping itself away without any physical touch. And behind it, something else started to show, like a second layer beneath the mirror. Dark shapes, shadowed outlines, a hallway, just like hers. But not hers. Something on the other side had started drawing back the veil, and it had learned how to write. Chapter 9. The handprint behind the reflection. Elena had stopped checking the mirror every day. It was too much, too strange, the fog, the whispers, the word. But today something new was waiting for her. She had been walking past the hallway with a laundry basket when her eyes instinctively flicked toward the glass. She dropped the basket instantly. The mirror was clear again. Too clear, but it wasn't empty. Behind her reflection, just over her left shoulder, was a handprint, pressed against the inside of the glass. Not on it, behind it. She spun around. No one was there. Of course not. But in the mirror, the handprint remained, slightly smudged, like it had slid down just a little. 5 long fingers, a palm wider than her own, the kind of hand that didn't belong to her or anyone she wanted near. She stared at it, slowly stepping closer. When she reached the mirror, she raised her own hand and mimicked the position. The sizes didn't match. And worse, the handprint started to move. It slid higher, tracing a path up the mirror. Then to the side. It dragged across the glass in slow, deliberate circles, drawing something. overlapping lines, spirals, marks like symbols from dreams you forget as soon as you wake up. Then the handprint pulled back, vanished, like it had been yanked away from the other side. And Elena's reflection smiled again. Only now it had the wrong hand raised, the left, not the right. She reached out with her right hand again to test it. Her reflection mirrored it perfectly, but the smile never faded, and behind it, the handprint slowly reappeared. This time, it didn't stop moving. It traced something more detailed, a sequence of symbols, one she didn't recognize at first. Then she noticed it was drawing her name, Elena, backwards, from inside the mirror. Her breath caught. The air around her grew heavier, thicker. The hallway lights dimmed for just a moment, and she smelled something strange, like burnt wood or ozone before a storm. Then she noticed the reflection's other hand. It was resting on the glass too, palm pressed, fingers twitching, and slowly, carefully it began to tap. Once, pause, twice, pause, 3 times, no pause. Tap, 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 tap. The rhythm was wrong, deliberate, like a code. Elena stepped back. Her heart hammered in her chest. She tried to look away but found herself rooted in place. Then the mirror pulsed, a shimmer across the surface, like heat rising off pavement. And her reflection spoke, not aloud, but inside her head. "You're closer than you think," she gasped. Her body hadn't moved, but her reflection had. It was leaning forward now, forehead against the glass, staring. And just as Elena turned to flee, the mirror whispered one last thing. One more step. She ran. But even as she hid in her bedroom closet, trying to silence her own breath, she could still hear the tapping. Faint, deliberate. Wait. Chapter 10. The other side waved back. It was raining when Elena finally decided to face the mirror again. A quiet drizzle tapped against the windows like a warning. She ignored it. The house had been too quiet since the last incident, and that silence scared her more than the whispers. She stood in the hallway with her arms crossed, staring at the mirror. Her own reflection stared back, expressionless, perfectly matched. She lifted her right hand. So did the reflection. She stepped left. So did it. Everything seemed normal, but then it moved first. Her reflection raised its left hand and waved. Elena didn't move. Her heart dropped. A chill crawled up her spine. She took a step back, and the reflection lowered its hand slowly. Then it smiled. Not wide, not unnatural, just a gentle, patient curve of the lips, like it knew something. Elena turned away to prove to herself that she was still in control. She faced the opposite wall, closed her eyes, breathed, then opened them and looked again. The mirror was still behind her, and so was the reflection. But now, behind the reflection, another figure, a blur, shadowed, faintly shaped like a person, but wrong, like someone had tried to paint a human from memory and failed. It waved too, a slow, exaggerated motion, as if it was mocking her. Elena screamed and stumbled back. The figure didn't follow, but the mirror flickered, only for a second. When she looked again, the shadow was gone, but the reflection was still smiling. And this time, Elena realized something she hadn't noticed before. Her reflection's eyes weren't focused on her. They were looking past her, at the thing behind her she could no longer see. Chapter 11. A Face with No Back. Elena began sleeping with the lights on, the hallway door closed, and the mirror covered in thick blankets and duct tape. But it didn't matter. She still felt its presence in the quiet moments before sleep, like breathing in static. On the 11th night, she jolted awake to a thud. Not loud, not violent, just final. She got out of bed, her steps silent against the floorboards, and crept into the hallway. The blankets on the mirror had fallen again. The tape, torn in half, lay curled on the floor. She was too tired to scream, too scared to look away. This time the mirror showed a hallway. Her hallway. But the lighting was dimmer, yellowed. And standing in the reflection wasn't her, or even a distorted version of her. It was a face, just a face. No body, no shoulders, no shadow beneath, floating, suspended in the center of the glass. And it was staring at her. The face had no expression, no eyebrows, no definition of age or gender. It was like someone had sculpted a human head out of memory and smoothed out every feature, except for the eyes. The eyes were too deep, too real, and they were full of understanding. She leaned in, drawn to the wrongness of it. Then the face blinked, and she saw there was nothing behind it. Just void, endless black, like the mirror had become a window into some place that wasn't hers. And the thing on the other side didn't need a back because it never turned around. It had always been watching. Only now it wanted her to see. She turned on every light in the house, but the darkness inside the mirror didn't budge. It absorbed the light, swallowed it whole. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound left her throat. The face drifted forward slowly, almost curiously. Its expression never changed, but Elena felt its presence deepen. She stepped back, only to watch the face inch forward, staying equidistant, as if space was folding in on itself. Then the reflection shifted, just a flicker. The face turned, slightly, not enough to break the illusion, but enough to reveal a sliver of something new. An ear that didn't belong, too low, a nose that twitched like it was sniffing. It wasn't human. It had never been. And it wasn't a face, not really. It was a mask, a veil. And behind the veil, Elena saw motion, like dozens of smaller eyes blinking in unison, a hint of a shape slithering behind the skin. Then the mirror vibrated. The glass wavered like water, and the face smiled, not with a mouth, with everything behind it. Chapter 12. The cracks came from within. Elena woke to the sound of glass shifting. Not shattering, not breaking, shifting. She followed the noise to the hallway, her steps slow and unsteady. The air smelled different, sharper, like ozone or the seconds before lightning strikes. She stopped in front of the mirror, now uncovered again, though she hadn't touched it. It looked the same for a moment, then the light hit just right, and she saw them. Cracks. Thin, delicate fissures had spread across the surface like spider webs, but they hadn't started from the edges. They started in the center, right where her reflection's face would be. She stepped closer. The cracks pulsed faintly as though they were breathing, and behind them, something shifted. It wasn't her reflection anymore. It was something wearing her face, twisted slightly, smiling through the cracks like they weren't there. Then the mirror twitched. The cracks danced. Each time the reflection blinked, more of the glass split, but no sound escaped. It wasn't breaking. It was being rewritten. Elena reached out instinctively. The glass was warm, and then she saw her reflection reach forward too, but not to touch, to push. A small bulge formed in the center of the mirror, stretching outward like something pressing through skin. She gasped and stepped back. The mirror stopped, and then a single word etched across the fractured surface, carved from the cracks themselves. Open. The glass hadn't broken from her side. It was cracking from within. Chapter 13. She spoke without moving her lips. Elena sat on the edge of her bed, hands clenched around a cup of cold tea she had no intention of drinking. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, rattling the old windows like distant voices, but inside the house, it was quiet. She hadn't spoken aloud in days, maybe weeks. Not since the mirror began answering, not since her reflection, and then she heard it. Her own voice. "Help me." Soft, barely audible, but clear. She stood up, her cup falling to the floor, shattering across the hardwood. She didn't even flinch. She followed the sound to the hallway. The mirror waited, uncovered now, no effort made to hide its presence. Elena approached slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. Her reflection was already there, staring, mouth closed. But it was speaking. "Help me." Elena's own lips didn't move. She placed her hand to her mouth, confirming what she already knew. The voice came from the mirror, but not from her. Not really. The reflection's mouth remained shut, but the sound continued. Louder, desperate. "Please, help me." And then her reflection's eyes rolled back. Its mouth opened wide, but still didn't move. From that gaping mouth, a new sound emerged. It wasn't a voice anymore. It was static, like a broken radio signal. Elena covered her ears, stumbling back as the sound grew unbearable. The walls vibrated, her vision blurred. Her knees buckled and she fell to the floor, crawling backwards on all fours. And through it all, her reflection just watched, expressionless. The static stopped as suddenly as it began, and the mirror went black. No reflection, no hallway, just dark. And then, in her own voice, spoken by something that was no longer her, "You're almost ready." The darkness flickered, and her reflection returned, smiling. Then it began to speak again. Not words this time, but laughter. A soft, slow laugh, dry and raspy, echoing inside her skull. It made her teeth ache. It made her eyes water. Elena screamed, But it wasn't her voice anymore. It came from the mirror. Her scream, mirrored and mocked, looping back at her. She crawled to the corner of the hallway, covering her face. She couldn't look anymore. And then silence. When she finally opened her eyes, her reflection was standing inches from the glass. Mouth still closed, but now its eyes were glowing faintly. Elena didn't know what was worse, the static, the laughter, or the smile that never truly needed lips to be heard. Chapter 14. The Mirror That Refused to Break. Elena didn't sleep. She sat up all night, her back against the hallway wall, staring at the mirror. She had brought the hammer again, just in case. But it felt more like a relic now, a toy. The mirror didn't fear it. At sunrise, she stood and stepped closer. Her reflection was waiting. It mimicked her posture, but the eyes were wrong. There was a hunger there, and something else. Anticipate. She raised the hammer. The reflection didn't. She hesitated. Then, with a sharp breath, she swung. The mirror didn't crack. The hammer bounced off, as if the glass was made of stone. She hit it again, harder. Again. Sparks flew. Her arm shook with each blow. Still, the mirror remained pristine, smooth, unbroken. But her reflection began to change. Each swing distorted its face, not the glass, as if each hit hurt the thing inside, not the surface. The reflection opened its mouth. No sound came out. But Elena could feel it, a vibration in her chest, in her bones, a scream that never reached the air. She swung again, and this time the reflection moved faster than she did. It caught the hammer from inside the glass. Her body jolted back, the mirror still unbroken, her reflection still holding the weapon, but now it wasn't letting go. The hammer vanished into the mirror. Elena stumbled away, empty-handed, breathing hard. The glass shimmered, rippling. Then her reflection whispered, not with lips, but in her head, "You can't break what's already broken." And with that, the mirror stilled, untouched, and smiling. Chapter 15. The Day the Reflection Walked Away. Elena didn't remember falling asleep. She only remembered waking up to quiet. Not silence, not the eerie hush she had come to know. This was stillness, like the house had stopped breathing, like time itself had paused, waiting for something to happen. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, and realized she was lying on the floor of the hallway, facing the mirror. The same mirror, always the same, and yet not. The glass was no longer reflective. It was clear, like a window, and beyond it she could see a hallway almost identical to hers, but cleaner, brighter, and walking down that hallway was her reflection. Only it wasn't mimicking her anymore. It walked on its own. Head held high, steps graceful and intentional. It wore her face, her clothes, but its posture was straighter, its eyes colder. It didn't look at her. It looked past her, at her house, at her life. Then it reached the edge of the mirror and stepped through. No sound, no shatter, just one foot after the other, into Elena's hallway, into her world. Elena scrambled backward, frozen with terror. She tried to speak, but no sound came. Her mouth moved, her hands trembled, but the figure simply stood there, now fully outside the mirror, watching her. Then it turned away and walked down the hall, like it had always lived there. Elena crawled forward, staring into the now empty mirror. And on the other side, trapped, was herself, mouth pressed against the glass, screaming silently and smiling no more.